can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name.
Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be starting a series called Return of the Giants. We're going to give you an overview of the history and some of the evidence in this part one of the series. Next week, we'll be going into even way more. So stay tuned for that too. But today I have Helve with me. How are you today, Helve?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm doing okay. Well, we're going to play this clip and I'm going to be actually posting it. It's a 33-minute video, so it's not technically not a little clip, but it's 33 minutes long. I'm also going to be posting it in full without interruptions. Um,
33 minutes is not a good number, Chris.
well, that's what it came to. That's very funny. Well, Jesus died when he was 33 years old, so
Oh,
they
yes.
hijacked it. You're a comedian. Um, so we're gonna stop and chat in between. I'm gonna share some of my testimony. I've already done a lot of that on other videos. So I'm not going to go deep into it, but we're going to discuss some of the things we're going to be watching this week. I pulled an interview. It's like a 3-hour interview um, of Tim Alberino, one of the better interviews I've ever seen of his. There are some other good ones too, but I just pulled some good stuff out of there and we're going to listen to it and we're going to talk about it. Next week, we'll be going over some of Steve Quayle and Tom Horn's stuff. All three of these men, including L.A. Marzulli, worked together and have for years. Tom Horn isn't with us anymore. But his work speaks for itself. But today we're focusing on some of Tim Alberino's information. So we'll get this started. Are you ready?
Ready? Should be very interesting.
It usually is with any of these guys. So.
I used to work with a guy named Steve Quayle, one of the old school researchers, authors who was investigating the topic of biblical giants. Steve and I created a production company called Gen 6 Productions, and we were making a film series called the True Legends documentary film series. And in the course of this endeavor, in the course of this enterprise, Steve was contacted by this elderly woman who told him that he needs to talk to her son because her son has a very important story to tell. And she had been listening to Steve for a long time, and she was encouraging her son to talk to Steve. And so she connected them. It turns out that her son was an active duty C-130 pilot who had allegedly picked up the body of a dead giant out of Bagram Airfield in his C-130, the government C-130 that he flew. And so we decided to fly him into Bozeman and to interview him for our film in the series. But when he came to Bozeman, Steve and I had the opportunity to spend some time with him. And he was willing to be interviewed, but he wanted to be interviewed in silhouette. So we didn't show his face. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want us to reveal his name. Mm-hmm. So he showed us his credentials. And he was active duty C-130. And he struck me as a very genuine, honest guy. He didn't want money, he didn't want notoriety. His mom convinced him to tell us this story, to tell Steve the story, and then he agreed to be featured in our film. So I had the opportunity to interview him, and he told us that in 2005, he flew a mission into Bagram Airfield. Now, this was not uncommon. He was flying routinely into Bagram Airfield to pick up what he described as high-value assets, which were usually like high-level Taliban guys. And So many of the missions he flew were classified. He thought this was a routine mission. In 2005, on this particular occasion, he lands on the tarmac, and he realized this was not a routine mission because he was met on the tarmac by who he describes, who he believes were Air Force intelligence or Army intelligence. He didn't know, but he referred to them as the babysitters. And he gets off the plane with his loadmaster, and these intelligence officers told him, highly classified, this never happened. And they escort him, which he'd never been met on the tarmac by anyone before like that. They escort him over to the hangar where the cargo that he's got to load is sitting. And as he's getting close to this cargo, the first thing he's struck with is this pungent odor. He said it was very, very strong. It was this musky odor. It was a combination of BO and death. And it was very powerful. And he realized there's something dead under a tarp on this pallet. And as he's getting up close to this thing, he realizes that it's a person. And this is a air cargo pallet. So it's 9 feet long. Yeah. And the guy that's on this pallet, he's covered by a tarp. He's in the fetal position, but his hands and his feet and his head are hanging off the pallet. This is a 9-foot long pallet. So he immediately recognizes that this is a gigantic person. He's got to be 10 to 12 feet tall, more like 12 feet tall. And he walks up to the cargo, and there's a group of, he thinks there were Marines standing around, kind of guarding it, and the babysitters, the intelligence guys. And he said that this giant was, again, so large that he was in the fetal position, but part of his body's hanging out. Most of his body's covered by a tarp, but you could see the head. So he saw the hair, which was red. The hair was red. He saw the hands and the feet, which had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And the feet were wrapped in a crude, canvas, primitive footwear. And the skin of the giant was white, almost like pale white. But he thinks that might be because it was dead, had been dead for a couple of days. And he said he would pound this thing with his fist, under the tarp. And he said it was a brick. It was solid. You could tell it was just muscular. He said, now, rigor mortis, it was dead, but he said you could just tell, just even by the parts of the body that were sticking out under the tarp, this dude was jacked. And the guys standing around the body told him that they had heard that a team of guys, probably special forces at this point, 2005, I don't think we had yet committed a lot of troops to Afghanistan at this point. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. I think this was early on. Could be wrong about that. But he said there was a team of guys that went on a reconnaissance mission. This is what the soldiers told them, guarding the body. And they were out in Afghanistan, the Kandahar region, and they came upon a cave. And there was a village in proximity to the cave, and the villagers were depositing various items at the mouth of this cave, food items and other things. And so they assumed that these villagers were aiding and abetting the Taliban who were hiding in the cave. And so they went into the cave, this team of guys. And instead of finding the Taliban, they were confronted with this very large hostile giant who killed them all. And so another team was dispatched to go and find this missing team, and they followed the tracks and went to where the last transmissions were from this team. And he said that the story goes that when they went into the cave, the giant was eating on the guys that had slaughtered. And they were able to take him down. Now, there's another story told by my colleague, Eli Marsuli, where he had a whistleblower come to him about this incident, which we're not sure if it's the same incident or a different incident, where the giant speared one of these guys from the second team. Might be a separate story, but not 100% sure. But they killed the giant, and then they airlifted him out by helicopter to Bagram Airfield.
I wanted to comment on what he said about the color of the skin. As a lot of you know, if you've watched our other videos, I've actually had experiences with similar creatures, but these are a little shorter than them and they're blonde. It's a different breed of them, and they do live underground. And their skin is extremely pale, like they've never seen the sun, and there's an artificial sun under there. It's dim compared to our sun. And the other thing I wanted to mention before we moved on, because I know he doesn't bring it up here, is that human beings are 3-to-1 on length. They are 2-to-1, meaning our shoulder width is about 3 going down. They're 2-to-1, meaning it's bone structure I'm talking about here. So these creatures are buff. They're half as wide as they are tall, is what I'm trying to say. Regular human beings are not built like that. I mean, we all come in all different shapes and sizes, but that's about how that
Yeah,
goes.
standard.
Did you have something to say?
No, I said standard. It's, standard for humans, or I've heard also your head height, the height of your head is 1/7 of your body. So 6 more heads down is the length of your body. So yeah, it's just proportions. So obviously they're proportioned way bigger.
Way bigger, way stronger, and their eyes are much larger. Their heads are larger. And their spine goes down here. Ours is kind of like in the middle and comes up. Theirs goes down like that, like a serpent's would. I mean, they don't have a serpent head. I mean, you can't tell unless you really look, and it kind of goes into their shoulders. And their eyes, they're bright, unusual, unnatural blue, just crazy looking. And when you look at, I remember when I looked at him straight on, that was terrifying to me because from a side view, kind of off a little bit, doesn't look that scary. It just looks like a 7-foot tall, huge dude that is very abnormally big. And then when they face you, you realize this is not human. This is not all human. This is not human. Anyways, oh, that's a lot of not humans. Okay. Are you ready to continue? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I don't, when he said that, I'm not sure if this is the same incident as Ellie Marzulli talks about where one of the second team got speared before the others were able to kill this giant. Again, if there's one, there's obviously more because that one had a mother and probably had siblings and a father somewhere. And that whole area in the Middle East is riddled with caves and caverns, and you could hide for years and years if you knew your way around the different cave systems. Like where did David hide from Saul? In the caves, and deep in the caves. Some of these caves are very deep in, and the world is full of lots of caves. Some beautiful that are used as tourist sites, and some, that aren't even probably explored yet. So, and the fact that, it was interesting when he said that the locals would bring food.
Because he's going to come eat them if they don't.
Yeah, if they don't
Treat him
feed
like he's a god.
this thing is going to come and steal one of them for a food source, and obviously would have because, is this where he said something? I've seen this video before. Is this is where he says, the second team goes into the cave and the giant is eating
Yep.
the first team,
Yep.
like sick,
Yep.
sick
And
and
this
evil.
is not the first time we've heard about that. We hear about it with the Native Americans. When they couldn't feed them anymore, they started eating the tribes.
From the book of Enoch, we know that the Nephilim were eating humans.
So in the book of Enoch, it actually talks about them eating
Yeah.
people
Cannibalism comes from the Nephilim. They are the ones
and
who
drinking
started
blood.
it. Yeah. When humans couldn't give them enough food,
Mhm.
then they became the food source.
Yep.
And he's there to load the body. And so they had to weigh the cargo to put it on the airplane. And the loadmaster weighed it at 1,500 pounds, subtracting the pallet, the air cargo pallet. They knew that the body weighed exactly 1,100 pounds, or approximately, I should say, 1,100 pounds. But they knew that was the weight because that was the weight that was being loaded onto the C-130. 1,100 pounds. So 12-foot tall, 1,100 pounds. Monster. And 6 fingers, 6 toes. And then the pilot, after they loaded the cargo, he had to take it to Qatar and unload it in Qatar. And then he told me he heard through the grapevine that the dead giant, ultimately made its way to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, he didn't know for sure, but that's what he heard. So we featured that story in our documentary, and Steve interviewed him on Coast to Coast AM, and then that story just exploded on the internet and has since become sort of mythological. But I've confirmed the validity of that story a few different times with different military personnel. One guy, very high-ranking Air Force guy, who told me that he could confirm that story, and then told me an additional story that was even crazier, which I don't have the liberty to tell. I have encountered different people in government and military who I have always asking them about UFOs and crash retrievals and alien bodies. And these people are very candid with me. They say things to you in a setting where you're sitting there smoking a cigar, drinking an old fashioned, that they wouldn't say in any other kind of setting, right? Yeah. And they'll tell you things and freely. But as soon as you start to question about the Kandahar giant or the topic of giants in general, these guys freeze. Like, they'll talk about aliens, but if you want to talk about giants, that's a whole nother level of trouble, let's say. And I have a friend who I told this story to, and I was actually at Lou Elizondo's bar in Wyoming, and I'm sitting there with a friend and who I met there. And I told him this story. And, he thought, I don't know if I believe that. And I don't want to give any of the details away, but he went and was with let me be careful. Let me be ambiguous here. He was with a staffer of a senator who's a friend of his. And this staffer had spent time in the military, in pretty high level. And in the course of their conversation, he said to this guy, "Hey, do you know anything about?" I was just with Timothy Alberino, and he told me about this Kandahar giant story. And like, you know anything about that? Just throwing it out there, right? And he and the staffer had a great relationship, and very jovial guy and casual. He said as soon as he said that, the guy went dead serious on him and looked at him and said, "Hey, what are you getting yourself into? Please be careful."
I have 4 or 5 witnesses on the Kandahar Giant. I've got the original shooter who we interviewed. We actually broke the story. Richard Shaw and I broke the story about the Kandahar Giant. The shooter, so Rick's on a show doing an interview about the Torah codes, and this guy is on the show. He's talking to Rick, and one thing leads to another. And after the interview was over, and this caller was still on, they strike it up, and he knows who Rick is and goes, "I saw a giant." And Rick goes, "How big was it?" 12 feet. You need to talk to LA. So like an hour or two later, I'm on the phone with the so-called shooter. That was the first of 3 conversations, 2 or 3 phone calls. And then I met this guy in Ohio. He showed me all of his credentials. And then we brought him out to Los Angeles and we filmed him. We disguised his face. We disguised his voice. And I believe his story. That's the first witness. And we had a second witness who was in the Kandahar province in the military about a year or 2 after the incident where the giant was shot and killed and trucked out of there. And they were told, there was rumors all around the base about this. No one said anything. You weren't allowed to talk about it. And when this soldier was training at cave fighting in a cave, he was told to aim high. He said, "Well, why am I aiming high?" The third witness we had was a man. I won't tell you what branch of forces he was in, but it was arranged at a conference. This gentleman sat right next to me, and we talked shop. And he knew of a team, apparently, allegedly, that went into the cave and encountered 3 other giants. One was killed, the other 2 bilocated. They just disappeared.
Wow, disappeared.
I find that very interesting. And I didn't remember hearing him say that before in other interviews. I didn't remember that. And when I heard that in this video here, I had to add it here because there's a lot of evidence of creatures just disappearing. They're not disappearing, they're going to the other side, another dimension. It's like, I call it the highway of the angels. It's the same reason that UFOs can appear and disappear. They're going into, it's like another door. They're going through a doorway, portals that they can create on the spot. They've even had film of Bigfoot doing this exact thing. Where they're coming in and out of this dimension.
Portals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. Any thoughts?
No real thoughts. It's I believe it. It's and yeah, I can understand why the governments of the world don't want the general population to know that we're not the only ones on this planet. And yeah, they just want to keep us in our delusion.
Yeah, it's about power and control over the populace.
Yeah.
And because if more people knew about it, more people outside of the government would be doing the same experiments and transhumanism experiments for super soldier programs and all the other crap that they use it for. I believe that's why it's about power. The people in power want to keep that power. Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Well, one video I heard, they have a Bigfoot, would have been the father. They killed his wife and his children. And they have and because they killed the wife and the children, he just gave up. And they now have him in captivity somewhere.
So they have one?
According to something I heard, all alleged, I guess.
I'm sure they have plenty of them.
They have them in captivity. Yeah. And I know that Tim Alberino says, if they could catch one alive, I'm sure they would. And but what kind of a cage would you need to hold something that big and that strong in? It would be,
especially something that can go in and out of dimensions. So if they're capable of doing that, what kind of facility would you have to have that blocks them from doing that?
Going in and out of dimensions, though, wouldn't there have to be particular portals?
I don't know the answer to that because
if they're not supernatural beings, I can understand angels going in and out of our dimension. But these are
half creatures more.
They're part human to some degree, And would they have the same power to go in and out of dimensions, or would they have to use portals? If they have to use portals, then they'd have to be in a particular spot where the portal is. If they
That's valid.
if they can go in and out of dimensions like angelic beings, then it doesn't matter where they are, and a cage could never hold them.
That's valid. Yeah, that's a good
So,
point. I know
Yeah.
dogmen have been known to do that as well, and they have they have had them captive. I mean, they've done experiments and all kinds of gene splicing, mixing that with human DNA. So I don't know why they call them dogmen. They look more like wolfmen, but okay. They look more like wolves.
It's a name. It's
Weird.
I've had guys tell me stories that are even, like I said, even wilder than the one I just told you. So then the Kandahar giant, it's not a giant,
Giants.
it's giants. I've even had somebody show me on a map where these giants are.
Do you think these giants survived, or is it genetic engineering?
I assume these are the offspring of the Canaanite Nephilim. Or a different offshoot from the generally speaking, from the Mesopotamian Nephilim, and they've survived, and they're living in. They're very primitive. They're feral. They're hostile, and they're very dangerous, and they are evil because how do I derive all this from a dead giant? I don't. I derive this from other stories that I'm not allowed to tell. So they're evil. They're very evil. And when you bring this topic up, man, I'll just say this. I was at a conference and there's a gentleman there I got to be really careful. There was a gentleman there who was in Afghanistan, high level guy. And we talked about some things, and he and I were talking. Really, really amazing dude, really amazing guy, strong believer. And he's walking away, and I knew he was in Afghanistan during this period of time. So I said, "Hey, let me ask you a quick question." He's kind of walking away from me. He's like, "Yeah, sure." That you were in Afghanistan around 2005. What do you know about the Kandahar giant? The blood rushed out of his face, and he went. And he pointed to his phone like, "Nope, I can't. Nope." And he just he was shocked.
What year was this that you asked him about that?
A couple of years ago. And his wife was standing next to me. She pulled down my shirt and she whispered in my ear, "You can't talk about that."
Wow.
I have talked to guys who have direct knowledge, not secondhand, direct.
Yeah, they were there.
This is the one topic that I talk about that makes me nervous. Because it seems that the topic of giants is more highly classified than anything else. Let's say I hypothesize that the reason why that's the case apparently is because it is so intricately entwined, let's say, with the occult. There are, I believe, occult practitioners who are practicing necromancy and who are attempting to use the remains of giants to summon the spirits of the giants, which we know are the demons.
Mm-hmm.
And you can contact them, and they're still in the world. And I think that they still have some sort of a connection to their remains. And if you can get the remains of the giants, you can summon their spirits. Necromancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's necromancy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the origin of necromancy. It's Canaanitish necromancy, which I believe practitioners of the occult, high-level practitioners of the occult, are engaging in this kind of necromancy. And we're talking about the top of the pyramid when it comes to the occult. And so, again, I always kind of have a lump in my throat when I talk about the Kandahar giant publicly.
Well, it's not just in the Middle East, because the Solomon Islands are in the Pacific.
The Solomon Islands, yeah. I think there's living giants in the Solomon Islands. Same thing, they live in the caves. They're underground. And some parts of the world, the giants are venerated. What does that mean? They're worshipped.
Yeah.
Other parts of the world, they're hated and hunted.
Did you see anything in Peru that like looks like giant involvement or no?
Peru has there are a lot of, I think we've talked about this before. There are a lot of incidences that are recorded, historical incidences where the conquistadors encounter the bones of giants. And they're clearly, and at least in some of the cases, clearly giant humanoids, not dinosaurs, not giant sloths, not mammoths. And the natives have legends of giants, red-haired giants that came from over the sea on reed boats. That's interesting because the Phoenicians made reed boats, among other kinds of boats, but they used reed boats. And the Phoenicians have red hair. That's a Phoenician trademark, which is why if you go to Italy today, if you go to Sardinia, you'll see Italians with red hair. Where does that come from? Phoenicians.
Mm.
So, in fact, they did a genetic test on the Sardinians, the Italians who live on the island of Sardinia, and they found that they have very prominent Phoenician genetic trademarks, hence the red hair.
Interesting.
So, I believe that the giants were dispersed around the world through the Phoenicians, who had contact with different continents, contrary to the prevailing view of isolationism. I believe that the Phoenicians were crossing the oceans, and that among the Phoenicians were giants. The Phoenicians had a cult of giant worship, and at which they exported all around the world. So I do believe, as I said, there's living giants today. They're feral, they're dangerous, and they're highly classified. People have gotten into big trouble talking about it, and they must have been warned. And again, it's got to be because it is, as I said before, it's interlaced with the occult at the highest levels. Nothing else makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. Like, big deal, there are giants. People say that, the prevailing idea out there among Christians is they're hiding giants because it proves the Bible. Well, it proves all the mythologies of the ancient peoples, right? Everybody's got mythologies of giants.
Yep.
Native Americans,
Yep.
the Mesopotamians, obviously the Canaanites, the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans. Everybody's got legends of giants. The Norse. It doesn't specifically validate the biblical text. It does, but not only the biblical text. And I dare I say, we're talking Podesta level occultism. So, Clinton level occultism, if I may be so bold.
I had to leave that in because I told you about the thing with Hillary Clinton, the thing that I saw.
Well, I remember the whole Iraq war was to pull out Nimrod's body from the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's what Hillary wanted. She
Mhm.
was the one behind that whole thing. And to start a war just so you can go in,
Mhm.
take over an area with a museum where you want to go in and pull out artifacts illegally. Red hair. When I heard that red hair is associated with giants, which kind of makes sense, maybe. You have Irish people full of red hair. But then you know that when Joshua came into the promised land, the whole idea, and we'll get into this, in one of the other segments of this series, he wasn't fighting mainly human beings. That Nephilim were everywhere in the promised land, and when he had to wipe out whole areas and civilizations, as you had Nephilim and part Nephilim all over the place. And so, God is not out to kill human beings, but he gets rid of evil. And so some of these Nephilim in Canaan would have fled into parts of Europe and to North America. And the whole 6 fingers, 6 toes, everybody makes fun of Indians. How? Well, how is because they want to make sure you have 5 fingers, not 6, you
Mhm.
know.
That's
In other
exactly why
words,
they did it. They'll tell you that
yeah.
too.
So yeah, the people who knew about giants knew that they had 6 fingers, 6 toes, and yeah, but the 6 fingers, 6 toes, yeah, that just seems to be common knowledge
Mhm.
among people who know about giants, ancient people who know about giants.
That, and they come with, things, that first of all, they're not all of their bone structures. They've really adapted in that way. These days, like the Pleiadians, which are hybrid children of the fallen angels. They're Nephilim, just a different type.
Mhm.
Um, um, they look more normal-ish. They
Well,
can't
and
really
then,
get normal down perfect,
yeah,
but they blend in a lot better, and their bone structures aren't like the giants. There's different types.
yeah.
Um, but
Well, even was it Star Wars or Star Trek that came up with the Brill people? Well, they didn't make that up. There are real Brill
yes.
people. They're not making stuff up. They're just putting the truth in plain sight, but letting you believe it's fiction. And then you got the Nordics that look like your, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Scandinavians with really pale skin. They're just a little bit taller than normal.
The Nordics and the Pleiadians, those are about the same thing. And then they have the tall blondes that are super white skin, and
Yeah.
their hair is like translucent almost.
Well, and they would blend in more with Nordic people because my part of my background is Estonian, and Estonia is just right across the Baltic Sea from Finland and Sweden. And generally, those people are very tall compared to the average population, um, and blonde and, blue eyes. My dad must have been well, he wasn't pure Scandinavian type because he was a little on the shorter side and had brown hair. But yeah, meeting other Estonians, tall people, and generally blonde. So, but then you get tall people in Africa and you get pygmies in Africa. So yeah, there are tall humans, there are short humans. So just because somebody's tall doesn't make them a Nephilim either. So.
I
But
always
six
did.
fingers and 6 toes, that's probably a dead giveaway.
I always wondered, especially because of the culture, how much of like the Nordic, Iceland, Scott, and they because of the Vikings going back and forth and ended up settling in Scotland and in Ireland and stuff like that. I always wondered, especially about the Nordics, because their religion there is so based around really the Nephilim, because the gods are the fallen angels, the demigods are the children of the fallen angels. Their entire culture is wrapped around that. And Odin would go around having, and it would be considered an honor to these people, go around having relations with the wives and producing children. So this is in their culture, this is what they talk about, and then it bleeded over into Scotland and Ireland. I don't know. There's a whole rabbit hole down there I like to play around in, but
Well, yeah, because the you talk about, biblically all the other nations worshipped false gods. Well, they worshipped Elohim little e, gods little g,
hmm,
sons of God, fallen angels. That's who they were worshiping, fallen angels as gods
mhm,
and demons as gods.
yeah.
And so yeah, when the Nephilim fled into those areas and they were superior, then yeah, they would like Thor and that kind of stuff. That's all um true.
Yeah.
It's
It's true. This is based on
yeah,
truth, people. And depending on what culture you come from, all these names that they have, like Thor and all that, they're all a different name in different cultures. They just take on
exactly.
different names. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, and Baal is Satan himself, you know. Again, different name in different cultures, but
Yeah.
yeah, worshiping the devil. And what is worshiping the devil? Sacrificing the innocent.
Yep.
The smaller, the better.
Yep. The more innocent, the more they like it.
Steve Quayle believes that there's some,
Rewind it a little bit.
nothing else makes sense, like big deal, there were giants. People say that, the prevailing idea out there among Christians is they're hiding giants because it proves the Bible. Well, it proves all the mythologies of the ancient peoples, right? Everybody's got mythologies of giants.
Yep.
Native Americans,
Yep.
the Mesopotamians, obviously the Canaanites, the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, everybody's got legends of giants. The Norse. It doesn't specifically validate the biblical text. It does, but not only the biblical text. And dare I say, we're talking Podesta level occultism. So, Clinton level occultism, if I may be so bold.
There could be a side of reverse engineering genetic enhancement.
I think that's a part of the equation. I do. I think that there's some genetic. I know Steve Quayle believes that there's a program, a super soldier program, where they're actively looking for these remains of the giants or the living giants, and they're using their DNA in some kind of black budget project.
We would be surprised though. But this is what Hitler was doing as well. Like not specifically with giants, but
yeah, trying to breed the master race.
I don't know if it was L.A. Marzulli or Steve Quayle that I heard this from, or maybe just some other video, again, that comes to my feed because I listen to this stuff. They were experimenting. Some soldiers, some military volunteered to be experimented on with this, all DNA altering stuff to make them into super soldiers. And it went way farther than they expected. It turned these people
Always does.
into non-humans. They probably still had physical human bodies, but the reasoning wasn't there. They ended up fleeing into the wild, they'd had to kill some of them, and the others fled. And who knows? So yeah, they look for soldiers who have nothing to lose, no family, and are you willing to undergo some experiments for us?
Well, I can attest to some of the experiments they've done with some of the people that I know and that I've been involved with in those places. They did that too. And I actually connected with some of my people. They did a lot of different things that allude to a lot of this. They did a lot of things to the men. They did a lot of things. Not good.
No, we won't.
And most people aren't even signing up for it. Like when they were just doing it through the military and getting people to sign up, they don't know what they're agreeing to, one. And most of the people that they involve in these programs don't know what they're agreeing to. They take your memory. You get bleed through memories and things like that, but they take your memory. Most of them, they use advanced SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse, advanced CIA altered. So it's more technical than it is, even though it's witchcraft at its core, but they use it as a tool. This is why I call all the black projects and the alien stuff, the Nephilim, this is all the beast system. This is the beast system that God is going to smash, just get rid of. I'm surprised he hasn't done it yet. Coming to a tipping point.
Yeah. The more you hear about, like, even hearing about the atrocities in Iran, it's like, Lord, we need your help. We need you to intervene. We need your help.
Yep.
Yeah.
He needs to come back and put it into all this. it's wrong on so many levels. And most people are just,
Yeah.
they don't believe it. They don't believe it because it's uncomfortable to believe it, in my opinion. It's like, what if these things were true? It would take you out of your little comfy zone of watching Netflix and going to Starbucks and wouldn't
Yeah.
feel so comfortable anymore. I don't know. I don't know. I've never felt comfortable, so I can't relate, but
There's a program, a super soldier program, where they're actively looking for these remains of the giants or the living giants, and they're using their DNA in some kind of black budget project.
We would be surprised though. But this is what Hitler was doing as well. Like not specifically with giants, but
Yeah, they're trying to breed the master race.
yes.
Are you guys familiar with Tom Horn, the late Tom Horn?
Yeah.
So Tom was a friend of mine, and Steve and I did a lot of work with Tom in our films, and Tom told us a story, and he said it publicly, and we featured it in one of our films. This story, he said that he was given, and Tom died recently in the last couple of years, 2023. Tom was an amazing guy and a phenomenal writer, great researcher. And Tom said that somebody contacted him in the military, and they shared some video files with him. And they told him, this is highly classified, be careful with this material. And it was footage, like security camera footage. I believe it was like security camera footage from the museum, the History Museum in Baghdad. And the footage depicted U.S. military personnel entering the museum, going into the back rooms and removing gigantic sarcophagi from the museum. And Tom was told what they're removing in this footage are the bodies of dead giants that were hidden away in the repository of the museum. And the footage showed them carrying these large sarcophagi, these U.S. military personnel, and loading them onto the transport helicopter. And Tom was told in no uncertain terms, this is one of the major reasons why we went to Baghdad, was to secure the bodies of these giants, which we knew were in the museum. And he's told that story publicly. He told it in our film. He said it on interviews. And shortly after receiving that footage, he downloaded it to his computer. Shortly after that, he was with his wife in his kitchen with Nita, and they were just talking, and suddenly they heard crackling in the walls, like firecrackers going off in the walls, and his house went up in flames, burned to the ground. What? Everything he had was lost. And Tom had, and the one thing he really lamented, he had a remarkable library of ancient texts and all kinds of books. And he was very proud of his library, and he lost everything. His house burned to the ground, including that computer and the files, the video, the footage of this incident. So again, this is highly classified stuff. I know it to be true. And I firmly believe that somebody's interested in the bodies of giants, specifically for a super soldier or something equivalent to a super soldier program, but also the occult aspect of it.
Yeah.
If you can use the bodies of giants to contact their disembodied vagabond spirits, the demons, then maybe you can learn something through these beings. They're very ancient.
I want to ask your opinion on that, because I've never heard that aspect of it, where finding the dead bodies or having the dead bodies of the Nephilim. I always thought it was just for their genetic, the stuff they want to do with the genetics of it to make super soldiers and other programs with it. But what are your thoughts on what he just said about it being for actually conjuring them up and having more access to them? Because you can talk to demons all day long. You invite demons in, they're coming fast and in a hurry. do we really need the dead bodies of the giants? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I question it the same way you are. Like, unless you want the specific demon that came out of that specific giant,
Hmm.
like, does it? Hmm. Well, I guess um even giant races and the evil system, the evil kingdom of this world has hierarchy. So unless you want to make sure that you get a very powerful, big giant demon from a big giant as opposed to a little little
Sweet.
squatty minion type thing. I don't understand that. That's a little confusing to me. I'm on the same page with you as, demons are roaming the earth and they're just looking for an invitation to mess with you or enter your body if you allow it. And what difference does it make which demon? But maybe it does, and maybe
Well,
I don't know.
well, my understanding of the higher levels of a cult are looking for the gods, not the demigods. They're looking to make contact with the fallen angels specifically,
Hmm.
you know. So, and Lucifer, I mean, once you hit the 33 degree uh in Freemasonry, you actually meet Lucifer. As a matter of fact, I have heard, of course, I don't know any of this for, firsthand knowledge, that even the president on their second term will end up meeting Lucifer, which, in my humble opinion, I think is a demigod, not a god, which means he's a Nephilim. That's my opinion. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole. And I just popped that one on Helva. There, we don't need to get.
Um, hmm. The whole 33-degree Freemasonry, apparently everybody who's president is supposed to be part of that before they can become president. I don't know if Trump is an anomaly or he's part of that club too. With him just putting together and heading up the a world peace organization.
It's 10.
Yeah.
Not
So
interesting.
so he's putting himself as, is he one of the 10 or is he over the 10?
I think
I think he
he is
might be
one of the
one of
10.
the 10, the
He's one
head
of the
one, but
10.
one of the 10.
Hmm.
Which would be interesting if those are the 10, you know what,
I thought about that too.
have been given power. These aren't, leaders. I don't even know who they are, so I really can't say other than Revelation talks about them as not necessarily being leaders at the time, but given power. These 10 are given power that they don't necessarily already have. Um, but okay, going back to the 33rd degree, if the 33rd degree, if they all meet Satan at that level, what I find disturbing is Billy Graham, was he at a 33 degree level to be able to be the pastor to successive presidents for pretty much his whole life?
I heard he was a program multiple. Yeah. A MK
Um,
Ultra victim. The word to call it. That's what
that's
I heard.
interesting. I've never heard that.
Yeah. I don't know how true that is, but
Alleged.
it would make sense.
We don't
Allegedly,
know.
yeah.
Alleged. That's alleged.
That's yeah. But I
Wow.
feel like I heard that somewhere like Russ Dizdar stuff or something like that. That's why I listened to it because, he's a great researcher too, and he's
Yeah.
done a lot of really good work at setting people free, when he was alive. Again, another one of our brothers that was, you know, anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. And now his son Franklin is, well, anyways.
that and Tom Dunn, took the baton and he's running with it. So proud of our brothers in Christ. Yeah. Anyways,
Sorry, what? Tom Dunn?
Tom Dunn. You don't know who Tom Dunn is?
I do.
Okay.
And Ella and
He's taken over his
oh,
website.
okay. So, oh, okay. I thought you were associating Tom Dunn with Franklin Graham. Okay, I know Tom Dunn
With Russ
is
Dizdar. Yeah.
is
sorry.
with Russ Dizdar.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
okay. We're talking about two different.
Okay. Okay. We'll get back to the video now.
Learn something through these beings. They're very ancient.
You could finish what the Watchers started.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a very good insight. You can glean knowledge,
Mhm.
and you can perhaps harness this power, this demonic power for something. And so you combine those two things, super soldier programs with the occult, and you can understand why this thing would be very, very highly classified.
Yeah.
When he said to continue what the Watchers started, what the Watchers started was the corruption of the human genome, the human DNA, to
More than
make
now.
us something half human, less human, not human, not fully human. And so we see this now in mRNA
Mhm.
products
Mhm.
to alter, to play with your DNA, which has the stamp of God on it, and they want to alter that. And so, yeah, to me, definitely part of the program is to continue to try to, well, you hear Human 2.0, you hear Neuralink, you hear, human computer brain interfacing, and all of that, becoming part of the, the the real life Borg that they have planned for us.
Yeah.
That's all to dehumanize us and turn us into robots and
Into their vessels.
well, it's, obviously Satan failed in his attempt to destroy the seed of the woman that would crush his head, because his head's been crushed. So now he is attempting to defile humanity, so there's no humans left for Jesus to come back for.
He said if he did not shorten the time, there would be no flesh alive left.
No,
And in
flesh saved, yeah.
yeah. And in Revelation, it talks about, hold on, had a thought. Oh, in Revelation where it talks about the Antichrist being in the temple, I think that temple is us. Because the Holy Spirit dwells with us. We are the temple. There, that's what I think. I think it might be a dual thing. I think there'll actually be a physical Antichrist showing up there, but I think it also talks about, or just possibly about dwelling in us. And it cannot do that unless it bypasses the natural stamp of God on us. On every cell of our body has his signature on it. And when you take that off, you're also taking off the protection. When you become Homo sapien 2.0, you are no longer with the protections, the natural protections of Yahweh. Which is the same thing with clones. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So when you do this, and with all their programs that they're doing to people, or they're doing it, through the mRNA, Satan can bypass this. And with all the crap they spray, with all the stuff they put in little shots, and all the things they're doing, people are actually having a signal. They can tap into this. I know we're going down another rabbit hole, but they can tap into this through your Wi-Fi, your phone.
When you've got the self-assembling nanoparticles in your body, and they've assembled enough, they start to put off a signal, and they followed some of these signals into graveyards, because even after death, people who've had certain the graves are giving out signals, and most of these these people that are in those graves have stretched out their arm and allowed themselves to be poked multiple times, and some of them just once. One poke can do it, depending on the formula of the poke. So,
And it doesn't settle in your blood,
oh
it
no, they
goes
know it.
into your lymph nodes, your tissue, your brain, your organs, and it settles in there.
Yeah, it can even go into your children. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Your unborn children, I should say.
Yeah.
And it could be not from the mother. It could be, it's carried through the sperm as well.
That's true.
So I know most people nowadays could care less whether you were vaxxed or unvaxxed, but me personally, it's like, it's still a big deal to me.
Huge deal to me.
Hopefully, wanting somebody in my life, and it's like it's hard enough to find a like-minded Christian,
Mhm.
let alone a like-minded Christian that's unvaxxed. I mean, it's like, okay, Lord, you're gonna have to find the person, because I can't.
Yeah.
It's I can't. It's the ocean's too big, and it's just too, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you combine those two things, super soldier programs with the occult, and you can understand why this thing would be very, very highly classified. Vatican's involved as well. And I don't say that glibly. I say that because of my experience.
You said the Vatican's involved.
Yeah, I say that based on my investigations on the island of Sardinia and my interviews with individuals who told me that the Vatican, that there were certain priests who were working to extirpate the evidence of giants in Sardinia and collect some of the remains. Not just the Vatican, but also the some academics from the capital city of Cagiti back in the, I believe it was in the early 80s when that was happening. So there's a lot to be said about the reality of giants. And again, we're not talking about NBA players here. We're talking about giants that are 9 to 15 foot tall. That's sort of the range when you look at the firsthand testimony, it's not anecdotal in Sardinia. These are people who dug up the bodies themselves with their own hands. Okay. You're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. Here in the United States, the legends of the Native Americans, you're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. Red hair, 6-finger giants. The Smithsonian's own archives, you're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. And this is what the deep black projects are involved in. And some of those projects are innocuous in the sense that there's nothing nefarious about them. They're just trying to investigate and understand and glean knowledge. And some of them are highly nefarious. Human experimentation, for example. Genetic experimentation. In underground base, stuff that happens in underground bases. And I was with Lou Elizondo the other day. And Lou told me, he said, it's so strange. We're finally telling the truth and nobody believes us. Crazy. And when he says we're finally, it's like elements of the government are finally acknowledging this reality. Yeah. And whistleblowers who were in government, Lou was in government. David Grush was in government. And they're coming forward and they're saying, hey, American people, there's a crash retrieval program. He must be, because that's what he did in the Army. Well, first of all, counterintelligence doesn't mean you deceive people. That's not what counterintelligence is. Everybody thinks counterintelligence means your job is to deceive people. No, it's not. Counterintelligence is your job is to go find out what the enemy knows. That's counterintelligence. What intelligence does the enemy have?
Counter it.
Exactly. That's counterintelligence. And everybody thinks counterintelligence is, you're a professional liar. Come on, get educated, people. Counterintelligence is finding out what the enemy knows. That's it. That's what Lou did. And I'm not here to, I'm not, my job isn't, I'm not paid by Lou Elizondo. Okay. Lou's a friend. And this, I could say the same for Grush. People dunk on Grush because he worked for the government. So what? That's why they know what they know. And you know what they're telling you? They're telling you that these illegal, highly illegal programs have been developing in darkness outside of congressional oversight, and very nefarious things have been happening. And these legacy programs have been recovering crashed UFO, non-human technology, and non-human biological entities have been recovered for decades, and we don't have oversight over this program. People like the late Leonard Stringfield, who was in his UFO reports, was writing about and documented the reality of crash retrieval of the legacy program decades ago, in the 70s. And his daughter Colette contacted me, and I've had a relationship with Springfield's material and his daughter through she sent me some of his materials and stuff, and I was very honored by that because Stringfield was an old school top tier investigator. Okay, there was no internet in the 70s. These guys, risking their lives back then, would go track down the stories, interview the military personnel, go to the bases. I mean, these guys did the footwork, and were able to collect a lot of data, and that data, in my estimation, and any ufologists worth their salt would, I think, attest that this data is conclusive. You're tracking down people who were there with firsthand knowledge of a crash retrieval, that sort of thing, and documenting it. Okay. And there's a lot of documentation. That's just in the crash retrieval side of things. Then you got guys like Stanton Friedman, who did a lot of it. Stanton Friedman was a nuclear physicist, did a lot of work on the Roswell event, and a bunch of other things. And he was coming at this topic from a highly intellectual, professional standpoint. And that's another sort of branch of this. And of course, you have some of the old school guys like Donald Kehoe and some of these older guys that were out there in the 60s and 50s talking about this topic. And then you have, in the realm of alien abduction, you have very competent researchers. Again, before the internet, we're doing the footwork, doing all of the investigative work to build these cases, these realities, such as, especially Dr. Carla Turner, Dr. David Jacobs, but also Bud Hopkins, who's a pioneer in this. And I'll throw John Mack in there, Dr. John Mack in there, although I think John Mack, I highly regard Dr. John Mack, who was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard. Mack did a lot of great work initially. I think he drew the wrong conclusions about the phenomenon, but like I said, Bud Hopkins, Carla Turner, and David Jacobs and others, who I think established beyond reasonable doubt that the abduction phenomenon is real, that it's physical. It's not a near-death experience. Yeah. It's not a demonic possession. It's not an out-of-body experience. It's not sleep paralysis.
It's not astral.
It's not astral projection. It's the Greys, mostly the Greys, come get you and take you on their vessel, and you are gone. You're physically missing, not your spirit. You didn't go somewhere in your imagination. You're gone. You know why you're gone? You know why you're not laying on your couch or laying in your bed? Because you're on their vessel. and not to get too deep into the abduction phenomenon, but you are on their vessel, being incorporated involuntarily into their breeding program.
Breeding program.
Yeah, they're breeding hybrids, alien human hybrids.
Yeah, the whole breeding program, Nephilim were on the earth before the flood and afterwards.
Yeah.
And so the breeding program is still going on today through abductions. And well, when Daniel sees the statue with the head of gold, the arms and breast silver, the loins, hips of copper, and then the iron and legs, and then the feet with the toes are iron mixed with clay.
Mhm.
Some people say that's again trying the Nephilim breeding program. Yeah, they're not mixing the way that they want them to.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I actually believe because of some of the research people were doing, who these were doctors and they were against the pokes. And so they were looking at it under a microscope. We've done videos on this before, but for those of you who have not watched them, they literally saw a chimera. I call it a chimera because it's some kind of creature that
Yeah,
is able to go into this. It was actually you could see it under the microscope, going like this and looking at them.
through the
How creepy
microscope.
is that? And that was in the stuff that you put in a syringe,
Yeah,
which is very interesting. So it'd have to be a chimera, otherwise it wouldn't be able to adapt to your body. It would have to have to be part. I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so
I don't know.
I
I don't know. It would be
but
like a virus or an intrusion into your body, but it'd have to be in a way that your body doesn't reject it,
yeah, exactly.
because your body normally will reject a foreign entity and attack it with the white blood cells. So if the body is not attacking it, yeah, that raises another question. Like, why is your body not attacking these foreign things that they're attempting to put in?
That's a very, very good question.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe when you change your DNA through mRNA, maybe that bypasses some of the protection as well. I don't really know. Again, I'm not a scientist, I'm speculating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe-
Common sense and a bit of knowledge and some speculation, and keeps you on your toes, if nothing else.
Right. Keeps you guessing, keeps you thinking. I mean,
Keeps you thinking. Yeah. And don't trust this world. Don't trust politicians. Don't trust big pharma. The word
trust
of God is the only truth. And so, yeah, get into the word, listen to the Lord and what he's telling you.
Mm.
And he'll let you know through his Holy Spirit on the inside whether something is good or bad for you.
And don't forget to join us next week, because we're doing a part 2 that's going to be extremely interesting for those of you who are skeptical. So you could hear a little bit of information about, the evidence of it. But next week, we're actually going to dive into some more of this and some of the enemy's plans. And, our people perish from a lack of knowledge. So we're going to make sure we're not.
Yeah. And one of these episodes will go dive deep into the Bible and where we see the terminology for giants and the mighty men of old, the men of renown.
Yeah.
And you think that comes out of Greek mythology? No, that comes out of your scriptures. So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us today. We hope you find this as interesting as we do. And we pray that you have a blessed week and hope to see you again next week. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Shalom, shalom.
I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. Come to the table, cup runneth over. Come drink your fill.